In this particular video, I'm going to present to you how to distinguish functions that have been created by plugins. We are going to present the functions belonging to three plugins, one called built-in functions, another one called spatial functions, and one that we're going to add ourselves called custom functions. To show you that, I'm going to start by opening SMath Studio. When we want to insert a function, we can click on the worksheet and then go to this particular FX. Okay. What I have here is a copy of SMath Studio that's just been installed, and so I don't have any new plugins added to it. But there is a number of plugins that come with SMath Studio. So when I do Tools, Plugins, you're going to see those plugins, and these are Area Region, HTML file type, Hyperlink Region, Image file type, Plot Region, Picture Region, SMath file type, Spatial Functions, Standard Toolbox, Text Region, Viewer file type, and XMCD file type. So pay attention to this one called Spatial Functions. When we try to insert a function, as I mentioned, we click in here, and then we have the categories here, and we've seen some of those functions in previous videos. But what I want to point out here is that there is this drop-down menu here that I haven't presented before. If I click in here, there are a couple of things. There's built-in functions, and there are spatial functions. And so just to give you a preview, if I go to my built-in functions and say I click on all, you get apps. These are all the functions that were originally built into the SMath Studio setup. For example, for complex numbers, you get all of those, or hyperbolic, and so on. But if you try to find programming, you find nothing in there. If you try to find string, you find nothing in there. If you try files, you find nothing in there. Now we're going to look at spatial functions. And then we'll notice that we get a few more functions that were not there in the matrix and vector. There's nothing new in complex numbers, there's nothing new in trigonometric, nothing new in hyperbolic, but there's all the programming functions, there's the string functions, and the file functions. Okay. Now, I'm going to insert another plugin. For that, I go here where it says local storage, click on it, and go to online gallery. And what I'm going to insert is one plugin called custom functions. There it is. So I click on it, and then I do install. And we'll do close. If I click on FX, and if I click on this drop-down menu, you get the custom functions entry, and then you can see that there is a number of functions that are added, like the conjugate function. This is an interesting and important function for complex numbers. There's a few new functions in math and vector. There's the conjugate and complex number. There's nothing new in trigonometric, nothing new in hyperbolic, nothing new. Oh, in programming, there's the cases function. And for the string function, there's a few of them, and a few of them for the file function. So now I'm going to open a worksheet where I'm going to use some of these functions. I'm going to pause and continue. And so in this worksheet, I mentioned that I'm going to present SMath Spatial Functions in more detail. I give you a listing of all the plugins that come with SMath Studio from the installation point. And then I give you a listing here of the basic built-in functions in SMath Studio. And what we're talking about here is that we try to insert functions in here. We get category all, category matrix and vector, and I'm listing all the functions that are in there. And then you notice that there's nothing listed in the programming strings and files. If we look at the Spatial Functions plugin, then we're going to see some new functions that are not available in the built-in. These are functions that were added later on, but that are now a constituted part of SMath Studio. And so I'm going to talk about some functions that we haven't used very much in previous video. from the collection of built-in and the collection of special functions. And some of them are like the Modulus Function Mod. It simply gives you the residual of an integer division. And so if I type mod 7,3, means that when I divide 7 by 3, I get 6 as an integer, but there is a residual of 1. And this is useful, for example, to determine when a number is odd or even. If I create this function called isEvenFn, I indicate if the mod n2 is 0, that means the number is even, otherwise it's odd. And so I use the function isEven here, applied to number 23, tells me it's odd, 24 is even. The n roots, you can type n roots 27.3 and you get this symbol. I'm going to type it over here. You get nth root 27,3 and that's equal to 3. Or you can click it over here in this symbol and then type separately in the placeholders to get the right result. There's this function called numDem that separates numerator from denominator. What I did in this case, I'm going to repeat the result. Click here and delete. Instead of using the equal sign, that's going to give me an error. You use control dot, that's the symbolic equal sign, and it separates the numerator and denominator of the expression. This is the numerator and denominator of 0.75, 3/4. For pi is pi over 1. Perks of the percentage, I don't need to describe this very much. The 5% of 126, the 50% of 83 is 50, and so on. The function random produces a random number between 0 and the number that I indicated the argument, like in this case to 100. If I recalculate here by doing recalculate page, I get a different number. Rounds up a number to the number of decimals that I indicate here, to 2 decimals, to 3 decimals. You can round up to 0 decimals, and so you'll have like round 3.45 with 0 decimals, give me 3. If I try 3.55, it rounds up to 5. Function sign is just gives you, if the number is negative, it gives you a -1. If the number is 0, it gives you 0. If it is positive, it gives you 1. Function sys produces a system bracket for 2 entries. You just type sys parenthesis. And if you want more entries, you just type the comma. I'm going to give you as many as you need. Truncates an integer part. It's similar to the floor function. App version n, where the argument is an integer between -4 and 4, would tell you information about the current version of the software.